give God praise because the Lord truly is the King of glory, the Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. This morning, I want to talk to you about a study that's entitled Expecting New Things from the Lord. In life, we learn it is easy to get locked into the rhythm of a society. No matter when a person lived, if it was decades ago, or whether it is, or centuries ago, or whether it is yesterday. It is easy to get locked into the rhythm of a society. If you think about it from the perspective of an infant being born into this world, the infant immediately put into a manufacturing line, how it automatically begins to bring you in and orient you to the traditions, to the norms of the society. You automatically begin to get acclimated into it, into those norms. So it's a systemic way of being able to get people acclimated, dependent upon, relying upon, and trusting in the norms of society. And those norms then also require the person to submit to, lean on, rely upon, and trust in the systemic ways. And it's when those systemic ways break down that people find themselves in a difficult situation, because then the thing that they're relying upon that serves as the guardrails for their life seems to be failing. The norms are failing. And this is what happens when countries fail and regimes change. The guardrails by which people, the system of the norms by which people live their lives change. So this is what happens when we get locked into the rhythm of a society. But what is that rhythm? It's really a common set of beliefs of what's possible and what is not. The rhythm of a society, the norms of a society, have certain guardrails by which people can and cannot do things. In a communist country, the guardrails that are used to govern society, the norms of society, allow people to do certain things, but it doesn't allow people to do other things. As opposed to a democratic society like the United States, it has guardrails, but those guardrails allow people to do a different set of things than people can do in a communist country. But in either case, in order to live in the society, one has to be compliant, believe in, trust in, follow, whether they believe in it or not. As long as they stay there, they have to acknowledge those guardrails, those norms, because that makes the rhythm of the society what it is. If I focus on this country does have a history of racism. Although this is a country of immigrants, it has a history of racism that's really not based on race, it's really based on greed. Who has the money? Who has the resources? Who is in control of those resources? And out of that, I've learned race is used as a reason for developing a group of people or a class of people or a segment of people who have and those who do not have. The key is about people creating norms that are based upon man's ability to succeed. It's common beliefs in those rails, those guardrails. What's embedded in those guardrails is a set of beliefs about what is possible and what is not possible. These norms become outgrowths from generations of people who earlier created man-made rules for survival. For example, many of the racist epithets, the racist acts that are performed today didn't just pop up today. They are outgrowths like weeds. They are outgrowths of man-made rules that were put in place earlier as a part of the rhythm of society for survival. To assure survival of certain people more so than other people. To drive positive outcome for some and negative outcome for others. The Jim Crow laws is an example of this, where those laws were put in place with the intention of driving a positive outcome for some and a negative outcome for others. The laws against unfair housing practices are laws for unfair housing practices. To even be talking about unfair housing practices is an indication that someone has put in place rules with the goal of driving positive outcomes for some and negative outcomes for others. But when these rules are put in place and made a part of the rhythm of society and condoned as being a part of the rhythm of society, it creates a situation for the people who are living in that society, for some who will see, who develop a set of beliefs where certain things will be possible and other things will not be possible. Many times you see the residual of what's left over, or you see traces of this divisive things in the form of racial epithets and flags and things of that nature that you might see signal around you. Symbols that people might embrace around you. But what I'm trying to get you to know is that these things, when they become a part of the rhythm of society, these common beliefs also paint a picture, attempts to paint a picture in the minds of the people that they were intended for of what is possible and what is not. And just to build on this point a little bit further, the Jim Crow laws were not intended to build a picture of someone who was African American, was not intended to give them hope that they would one day be the president of this country. Those laws were not designed with that in mind. Just as an example of what I'm saying, what I'm trying to get you to see. They were intended to give people the perspective of what they could possibly do and what they could not do. If you go way back in history, even to the days of Egypt, where they enslaved the Hebrew children, they also had the same rhythm of society, a set of common beliefs, norms that were outgrowths from earlier generations where man, who was in control of Egypt, created rules for survival. And those rules drove a positive outcome for the Egyptians and drove a negative outcome for those whom they enslaved. One of the groups they happened to enslave were the Hebrew children. So it wasn't intended to drive positive outcomes for all. But was there an intent for everybody to eat? Yes. Was there an intent for everybody to eat the same thing or to eat well? No. So what I'm trying to get you to see is that these things, these common beliefs, when a a child is born into these common beliefs, the system, the child automatically gets assimilated into the system, and like all of the other individuals, the other children that are around them, the other youth that are around them, the other young adults that are around them, the other adults that are around them that are assimilated in different ways, they look around them and they learn and they are informed, and they begin to be also assimilated into that system of beliefs of what is and what is not possible. And because this all, in most cases, starts out with the greed of some trying to carve out a special place for themselves, it's all built on a lie. It's built on something that's not true. And as a result of being built on something that's not true, it cannot stand. Over time, it will lose. It will fail. Because only truth stands the test of time. And so the Lord did not intend for his children to live in this manner. If you think about the creation and what happened in the garden, what the Lord provided in the garden, that quality of life is the quality of life, although the Lord cursed Adam and Eve and took away that level, that quality of life out of the Garden of Eden. If they would repent, if a descendant of theirs would repent, and if their descendant of theirs would acknowledge the Lord, they have an opportunity through the grace of God to be restored into that quality of life. Them and their offspring, some level of that quality of life. But in order to do that, they must believe that that quality of life is possible. And so what happens that opposes that? This system that I'm talking about, this rhythm of society that I'm talking about, these man-made rules for survival begin to go against that. They begin to twist it. They begin to bend the truth for the purposes of survival of a few, and a few having more than the masses. So the rules get created in a way that benefits some more than others. And so the people begin to believe what is possible and what is not possible based off of what the system has instructed them to know, based off of what the system has educated them they can achieve. I'll go back to a communist system and a democratic system. What the people believe they are able to accomplish and do and not do is a stark difference. Just as an obvious example. Now, adding the Lord to this. What people, when the guardrails that they live by are largely created by mankind, and those guardrails basically dictate the quality of life that they can have, that they can even hope for. This was not the Lord's intention. So what did the Lord do? In his mercy, the Lord sent his son Jesus Christ to offer a new, better path in life. A better path for all. Not just for some, but a better path for all. It was a wake-up call for those who would put in place rules for biasness against others, who would treat others in a way that they would not want to be treated, and an opportunity for them to change their ways, and for those who were living beneath where God desired for them to be, it's an opportunity for them to rise up and live in the abundance and in the grace and in the blessings and favor that God would provide to his children directly, or cause mankind in this world to give into his children's bosom, simply because they would listen to his instructions. Jesus came with a message encouraging people to listen to the instructions of the Lord, to follow his teachings. And if so, God's grace will enable them to live in a state of abundance. In a world where what's possible is going to be based on what you believe is possible. Also, what is not possible is based on what you believe is not possible. But the Lord sent Jesus to offer this new, better path for life for all. But in order to do so, in order for us to accept, in order for us to live in this better path of life, we had to think a new way. I'll go back to the period of slavery of the African American in this country. When the Emancipation Proclamation was announced, and when many of the slaves were told that they were free, they had to start thinking a new way. Because all they had known for many for those who were brought to this country and they lived every day of their life in this country enslaved, to now be free, they had to start thinking in a different way. What does that mean? And for those who were born in this continent, parents brought from another country, but offspring, brothers and sisters born in this country, and then all of a sudden, the system that you were born into, that you were being acclimated to follow, all of a sudden, now you're free. What does that mean for you? They had to begin to think a new way. But understand what they were under was a set of rules, man-made rules that became traditions or common beliefs that was an outgrowth of something that was not like God, but introduced by man nonetheless. People who were godless, but introducing rules in the name of God, treating other people in a way that they would not want to be treated, creating a world in a way that they would not want to be on the other side of that equation. And that even holds true today. There are many people, politicians, who are in positions making rules and decisions that treat people in an unfair way that if they were on the other side, they would not want to be the recipients of such treatment, such vitriol. What I'm trying to get you to see is that when people are in places of influence and people think this way, they create norms, they create rules, they create a system that causes people that people get born into, that causes them to believe in lies, to believe in that which is not true, to believe in things that will cause them to believe that they have limitations in life, limitations on what things they could hope to attain. And that just was not the Lord's view. So the Lord sent his son Jesus to give us an opportunity. But the key is that we have to recognize at the moment that we learn that there is this opportunity to change, we have to think a new way. Even if you became born again today, from this point forward in your life, you have to begin thinking a new way. Because life is intended to be different, is intended to begin to be better. Your freedom for being better, your freedom for improved quality of life is going to be based on your realization of the bondage that you're in. It's going to be based on your realization of what the system that you are following that's causing you to be enslaved. And even within religion, even within serving the Lord, there are systems that are put in place by some with the intention of enslaving people, even within religion. That's how you can get false religion. None of this was God's intention. It was man, created by man, made rules for survival, mostly rooted in greed. Because if people are genuinely serving the Lord in spirit and in truth, then you wouldn't have the divisiveness that you can have in religion. You wouldn't have divisiveness in serving the Lord that you have. You wouldn't have divisiveness that cause people to be racially one against another, and they walk into different places of worship. You wouldn't have that hypocrisy. But that hypocrisy exists because of man-made rules that were created to survive and weaved into the fabric of society for people as guardrails for people to live by.
Oh, praise be to God, from whom all blessings flow. It is our prayer at Clay Family Ministries that your life has been increased with the increase of God through this study. We appreciate and are thankful for your fellowship during this life skills study segment.